and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and today I'm bringing you my January wrap up. I'm a month late and $1 short, but let's just get into this. The first book that I finished in the month of January is My Sister's Grave by Robert Dugoni. This is actually my second time reading it. One of my goals for 2019 is to try rereading at least one book a month. So if I can reread 12 books in the year of 2019, I will be super excited and happy. But without explaining and going into even more detail about that, after rereading this one, I read it back in 2016, so about 3 years ago. I rated it a 4 3 years ago. I decided to re-listen to it because I do have it on Audible, and I'm like, I know how this book was. Like, I liked it enough that I remember a lot, but I couldn't remember for the life of me how it ended. Once I got into like my Audible and started listening to it again, everything started coming back to me like, yep, I remember that. But it didn't matter how much I racked my brain, I still could not remember how it ended. And so the ending was actually still a surprise for me, which is really weird. You would think, I don't know, there's something wrong with me. But I rated it a 4. Again, it's still a fantastic read. So the synopsis of this book is there is a woman who is a police officer, like a detective out of Seattle. 20 years ago when she was probably like in her late teens. No, I want to say she was like college age, and her sister was the teenager. And her sister went missing 20 years ago, and they never found her body, never could figure out. A guy was convicted for supposedly her disappearance, but a lot of things just didn't add up, and Tracy, 20 years later, as she is now a detective, is thinking, this guy has been wrongfully accused. But lo and behold, one day they do find her sister's body. Of course, there's not much left, but there is a lot of evidence in this shallow grave that she was in. And of course, a lot of things start bubbling up, and the trial has come back to the courts. And Tracy wants to really figure out who the real killer was and what really happened to her sister. I really like this. It's a good adult mystery crime novel. I don't think it's a thriller, at least in my eyes. I did not feel like it was thrillery. It was more of just like your mystery crime. 4 stars. I'm rating it PG-13 because there is some language in here, as well as quite a bit of like description of like violence and possible sexual abuse. The next book that I finished in the month of January is, of course, Michael Vey, the series that I have been trucking through. I believe this is book 3 by Richard Paul Evans. I've liked this series so far. It is a YA magical realism type of book, and it's these kids that have come together as a electro clan, as they call themselves. And most of these kids that are in this clan together, this group of friends, they have electrical powers, but each one, their electrical power is a little bit different. This one did not disappoint. 4.5 stars for me. It is PG, but overall I really liked it. So Michael Vey, who is of course your main character, and his electro clan are trying to get to Taiwan because the bad guys that they are kind of up against figure out that there is a child prodigy that knows how all of these kids came about being electrical. And this bad guy and his clan are trying to start an army of kids that are full of electricity. So if they find this child before Michael Vey and his clan do, more than likely he's gonna find out the code and the reason for how these kids are so electrical and how to make more. So of course it's a huge, good versus evil, getting all the way to Taiwan, trying to find this girl who is a complete child prodigy and hopefully find her in time before the bad guys do. I liked it, it's not bad. 4.5 stars. The next 2 books that I picked up and finished in the month of January is of course the continuation of the Revere series that my mother-in-law had picked up for my 4th grader, Dean. We decided to read these together in the month of January. We read a previous one back in December and really liked it, so we hopped into these 2, and they did not disappoint. If you're unfamiliar with this series, this is about Revere, who is a middle school teacher, like substitute teacher. He has a magical horse that can transfer or transport kids back in time so that they can relive history in person. I love how Rush Limbaugh has taken real American history and has applied it in a sense where young kids can actually love to learn about American history, because he's taken modern day kids and a time traveling horse and has made it fun. So it's got magical realism, kind of fantasy elements to it, but of course it's quite nonfiction as well. This one is Rush Revere and the Presidency. It explains how George Washington came about being the first president, as well as John Adams, who became the second president, how the elections kind of came about, why things were set up the way they were, and the stepping stool that George Washington kind of started for the American people, and how today a lot of these elements are still used when it comes to election time or Democrats versus Republicans. I really like how they explained how they wanted it to be a ruling for the people, not a government to take over. So back then, they were more worried about, we want the American people to have a voice and a vote. And that's where this kind of all stems from. And I love that my fourth grader could learn about that, where it's not just in a history book or a school book where it can kind of be daunting and boring. He actually learned quite a bit of presidency history that was kind of has a fun spin on it, which I really liked. This one I gave 4 stars to. Of course, these are G-rated. The other one is Rush Revere and the Star-Spangled Banner, which I gave a 4.52. We really like this one. This one, of course, is explaining more about how the Star-Spangled Banner came about, but as well as the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which a lot is explained here. The only thing that I wish this had more explanation of is the actual Star-Spangled Banner, but there's a lot more involved on how that flag was still standing there and the come-abouts, and that part was kind of left out, which bummed me out because I find that part so fascinating. But overall, my, Dean and I, we loved it, and he soaked it right up, and the fact that he can tell me why the American flag kind of came about and what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are, to me, just puts a smile on my face, because little does he know, he's learning history, but in a fun way. I love it. The next book that I finished in the month of January is Physique, which is book 3 in the Septimus Heap series. I'm still loving this series. This one by far though, out of the other 2 that I've already read, was a little bit disappointing to me. I'm rating this PG. It is a middle grade fantasy series, kind of has a lot of Harry Potter feels to it. I gave this one a 3.5 star just because I really like the plots of these, and I love being sucked back into all the familiar characters that are from book 1 and book 2. But this one, it just felt like it jumped around so much from certain things that at times I was like, I could hardly catch up. It was just, a lot was happening, and this one, they almost like time jump. So there's like different time frames in this one. But anyways, Septimus's father one day opens up a room in this castle, and he lets out a 500-year-old dead queen's spirit, and she's just as cruel as she is dead as she was alive. And then of course Septimus gets sucked into a teleport, like a mirror, that takes him back 500 years ago when she was actually a reigning queen. And of course lots of things that he's trying to do 500 years ago to prevent what's happening now. It was a really good story, but the time jumping and the back and forth, there were times where I'm like, I'm kind of confused. And I'm a grown-up and this is supposed to be middle grade, but other than that, I really liked it. I love the characters. 3.5 stars. The next 2 books that I finished in the month of January are actually rereads for me. So remember at the very beginning of my video when I wanted to reread at least 1 book a month for a year of 2019? Well, lucky for me, I actually did 3 so far, so woo, I'm on a roll. But anyways, I decided to re-pick these ones back up and reread them because a few months ago, I hauled the 3rd book that just came out, and it's called The Scarecrow Queen. So the first book is The Sin Eater's Daughter. These are by Melinda Salisbury. And the second one is The Sleeping Prince, and then the 3rd one is The Scarecrow Queen. But I had read these several years ago, that there were a lot of things like, I think I need to reread these to be able to really get into the 3rd book because there are some things that I have forgotten. So of course the premise of this one, The Sin Eater's Daughter, there is a young teenage girl who is supposedly her skin is toxic. So if she touches anyone, they die a horrible death. She is technically the executioner for this kingdom. Whoever is a traitor to the kingdom or the land is suddenly put to death by her, and so she must go and be the executioner and touch them, and they die a horrible death. Lo and behold, suddenly some things aren't adding up for her. Of course, she's also betrothed. Twila is betrothed to the prince, but he really doesn't want anything to do with her. But because he's prince and he's got royal blood, he's immune to her. So of course there's lots of political divide, a lot of craziness ensues. She starts to grow as a person and figure herself out, as well as just trying to be somebody instead of someone telling her to be someone, if that makes sense. And then of course the second one is a continuation, but these are kind of all new characters. It goes on where the queen from the first one has released the sleeping prince that has been sleeping for hundreds of years, and then he goes on a reign of terror and things go from there. I'm giving these a 4.5. I really like them. The first one I'm giving a PG-13. It does have a little sexual topics or content in it, but not much. It doesn't go into detail, but you know what they're doing, and they talk about being naked, whatever. So if you've got a young kid that wants to get into these, just FYI. And then this one, of course, is just PG. There's just lots of violence, but there's no like sexual things in here or whatsoever. I can't wait to read the third one. I'm excited. The next book that I finished in the month of January is How to Make Shit Happen by Sean Whalen. Now, I have been following Sean on Facebook and YouTube for a couple of years. He is definitely your hardcore, hard-hitting, conservative, down-to-earth family man who went through a really, really bad time several years ago, to the point where he lost his family, he went through divorce, he claimed bankruptcy after earning millions of dollars, and when he hit an all-time low, he tried to commit suicide. And of course, after that, he bounced back and was able to kind of take his life back. And things are never going to be the same as they were, but that doesn't mean that you can't be better than you were back then and learn from your mistakes. And that was the great thing about this one. So this is definitely rated R because there is a ton of swearing. I mean, if the shit is in the title, you might as well know that there's gonna be a ton of swearing in here. But it's very to the point. It's a self-help book that pretty much just gives you 4 different things to work on. So it goes from his 4 core is what he mainly focuses on, and it's power, passion, purpose, production. So of course, every day you work on these 4 different things. Of course, power is gonna be your fitness and just getting healthy and being stronger of a person. What was your power for today? The next one is passion. So he is constantly about trying to reconnect with those that maybe you have lost in the past, whether it's family or friends, or you did them wrong or they did you wrong, as well as just reconnecting with your spouse or your partner, your kids, your mother, your father, whoever it is, and to every day take a little passion in your life, and whether that's texting somebody how much you appreciate them, or reconnecting and taking your husband or your wife out on a date, or doing something really sweet for your kids. So, and this can go from like even friends and other family members and whatnot. So what was your passion for today? What was the one thing that you did to make someone's life a little bit happier and to reconnect with those that you love? The other one is purpose. Whether it's meditating or just taking time out of your day to do something for yourself that just kind of rejuvenates you, recharges you, rewires your brain to just keep on going and keep being motivated. He's all about like brain power. Like, you need to take a break, even if it's 5 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, but every day you need to take a little bit of purpose and apply it into your life. And then production is the last one, which has to do with your work ethic. He wants you to stay motivated, and what is something every day that you can be productive about. So this doesn't apply to just one person. This can be a stay-at-home mom, or this could be a very high CEO dude of a business. And so you've got these 4 things you gotta work on every day, which I really liked and I took away from Sean. And I'm giving this a 4-star. I really liked it. And I highly recommend people picking it up if you're just wanting a little fire to, you know, be lit under your ass to get yourself out of a rut, or to just apply yourself and be a better person, and to just be better at everything in life. The next book that I finished in the month of January is a Audible original, which I picked out 2 for the month of January, and the first one that I listened to is called Power Moves by Adam M. Grant. This is G-rated. This one I'm giving probably more like a 3. This is talking about how it's a self-help business leadership kind of podcast. Feel like there's a lot of interviews in here, and he interviews CEOs, he interviews a lot of different people to kind of ask the public or these CEOs, how do people move up in their positions? Instead of, you know, bulldogging their way through their company so that they can be promoted to number 1, they're starting to find that when you get power in your company or whatever you're doing in life, a lot of times it has nothing to do with kicking others while they're down or doing 100% in your job, which you should. But the premises of this was they're finding nowadays that power is actually being commended to those that purposely put themselves out there, become a little vulnerable, ask questions no matter how high they are up on the totem pole or how low, and to just be relatable to the people around them. The more relatable and vulnerable you can be to learn more about your business or your task or production or whatever it is you're doing, then more than likely you're gonna move up in the world, if that makes sense. And so I really like the take on it. I'm giving it about a 3. My next book and last book that I listened to in the month of January is another Audible original. It is called The Last Days of August. I'm giving this a 3.5. It is a adult nonfiction interview podcast type of thing again, but it's kind of got like a detective crime feel to it. It's rated R because it does have sexual content, sexual topics, and swearing. Most people probably don't know who August Ames is, and I didn't either until I started reading this Audible original. So August Ames was a very well-known porn star, and last year, was it either last year or 2017, they found her in a park. She had hung herself and committed suicide, and it was a day or 2 after she had made a specific tweet on social media that went viral, and people were shaming her and just bullying her supposedly. There were these guys that put together this Audible original, decided to do a little digging and see, did she really commit suicide from social media bullying, or was there so much more? It really got this crime detective feel to it, which I really liked. They interviewed like her husband, her brother, her co-workers from like the porn industry, and then those that are not in the porn industry that were friends with her. So you got all walks of life from the people that either cared about her, loved her, or hated her. And of course, you're talking about the porn industry, so there's a lot of shady shit that goes on in the porn industry. A lot of it is who's saying the truth, who's lying, he said, she said. There's a whole bunch of like miscommunication, of course, in the porn world. And on top of that, they did dive into like her social media stuff. And so there was a lot of things, even with like the husband when they interviewed him, and then the brother, some things weren't adding up. So then it started coming to a point, did she really commit suicide or was she murdered? There's still no answers. There was things that just didn't add up. One man would say something, another woman would say something, his husband would say something, the brother would say something. And so there was a lot of like just craziness that you were just bouncing around going, I don't know who to trust. I don't know. And these are like real people. It was very eye-opening to me, just not only the porn industry. I mean, the porn industry is the porn industry, but also too, like she delved into sexual abuse that happened in her childhood that was never addressed. And so that kind of came to a head going, you know, a lot of people suffer with anxiety and depression and PTSD from things that happened way back when that they may not know is affecting them now. People deal with that all the time. So was that also something that was into the factor? It was just so many different things going on that you're like, I don't know what to believe. And I think that's what I liked about it most. I actually really enjoyed it. All right, guys, that is my January wrap up. It was probably a little lengthy, but just deal with it. I will be also posting my February wrap up here shortly because it is the last day of February, and I'm still trying to kind of play catch up because I hadn't really filmed anything for the last 2 to 3 months. I'm getting back in the swing of things. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to really know more about how I think these books turned out for me and how I rate them and whatnot, go to my Goodreads. I will leave my link down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I would love it. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.